Let me know where you're coming from so we can recognize everyone here tonight. We have the beautiful Dr. Cheri Phillips, who is coming tonight to talk with us about 2021 and the Black economy, just the economy in general, and y'all know how we can take advantage of it. So don't forget to put your city and state in the chat so we can recognize you tonight.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. We're going to take a few minutes. I'm going to get set up here so we can. Okay. As everyone's coming in, first of all, good evening. Second, don't forget to put your city and state in the chat so we can recognize you. We definitely want to say hello to everyone. Officially, Happy New Year. Can recognize you. There we go. I see Will here from Texas on YouTube. So hello, Will. We're here streaming on Facebook. Everybody put your city and state in the chat. We are in Zoom. We have the Detroit in here. We've got California, DC, Waco, Texas, Chicago, another Detroit, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Frisco, Texas, Charlotte, North Carolina, Highland, Indiana. Ryan from Bowie. Hey, Ryan. One of the richest African-American counties in the USA. Well, we're trying to get richer. Ollie is here. Hey, Ollie. Oh, Monique, you're hearing the ticking sound? Is it still going? Oh, not anymore? Okay, good. Got another Atlanta. Lawrence is saying, missed last month. Don't worry about it. We hope you caught some of the replays. If not, then, you know, you can just hop on in right now. So welcome from Stockton, California. Yeah, Antoine, I know about the ticking sound. Sometimes it comes and sometimes it doesn't. So I think I'm going to have to end up changing my webcam. I bought another one, but then the ticking stopped and now I have to go and find it again. So Memphis, Tennessee, Virginia Beach in the house, Hampton Roads, Spring, Texas, Bridgeport, Connecticut. Hello, welcome everyone. Wilmington, Delaware, Philly. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so everyone's saying the ticking noise is still there. The problem is if I leave, then I think we may end the stream is the problem. So I don't necessarily want to leave myself. Sounds more like a fan. Is that better? Let me know. Put a 1 in the chat if that's better. That was my heater, but I can live without it for the next hour. We got Jonesboro, Georgia. I see a 1 in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if that's better with the ticking sound. And Facebook, I see Nashville, I see Cleveland. Okay, I see 1. So, all right, well, we'll keep the heater off. We got New Jersey, we got South Carolina here. So I'm glad that the ticking sound is better. Want to say hello to everybody here this evening. Okay, got Houston in the house. Hello, Houston. All righty then. So, Dr. Phillips, Dr. Cheri, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Good evening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, my dear. You know that you are one of our favorite guests. We, of course, love all of our guests, but especially Tawana. She's like, Dr. Cheri just says things and all of a sudden I figure things out and it just clicks. And, so everyone, you may not know the story. Early on, I asked for an economist to come and talk with us about there was a couple of things happening in the economy, and I was scratching my head about a couple of things. And I said, if we have an economist here, email me. And immediately when we got off the air, I got an email from this beautiful woman saying, I'm an economist, tell me what you need. And that is the power of the 10K Project and the 10K Project Network. So, Dr. Cheri and I talked for about 10 minutes. Immediately we clicked. I said, okay, come on. And of course, she's been on a couple of times to talk with us about the economy, what's happening in the macro economy. The last time she was here, we talked about Treasury Secretary and why Treasury Secretary was so important. Why Treasury Secretary was holding up our stimulus checks.
Yes.
What do they do, and why we should pay much more close attention. And then at that time, Janet Yellen had just been announced that she was going to be the nominee. So we talked about, well, what can we expect from her? So of course, if anyone wants to find that, it's on YouTube. It's open for public. So anybody that wants to go to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel, please do that, because we are working on getting our numbers up. But today we wanted to come in and just talk about economics 2021. We expect a new president in the next 16 days,
16
I think
days,
it is.
16
He's
days.
inaugurated on the 20th. The vaccine is here. Some people are saying they're going to take it. Some people aren't. We're hearing in the news that the vaccine is not reaching people like it should, all of that. There's just so much happening with the economy. Also, there are people who made record-making profit last year. And it wasn't just Amazon. Right. And of course, there were other industries, other people that had flatlined or had a major loss. And that was it. We talked about the K curve. That was it.
Yes, the recession, whether it was going to be a K, L, U, V, or W.
Yes. And the truth is we're seeing the K. There were winners and there were losers in 2020. And we want to figure out how more of our people were disproportionately on the losing side in 2020. Yes. What can we do in 2021 to turn that around? And I do think a part of it is us funding our own businesses. So what I want to do, Dr. Cheri, is put a plug in for the 10K Project and what we're doing, and then turn the floor over to you. I usually like to give you 10 minutes or so to tell us the state of the economy, the things that we should be looking out for. And then everybody, it'll be Q&A time. Oh, I'm sorry, that's my mother in the background. She's doing some, hold on a second. Okay, guys, sorry. I'm gonna put myself on mute once Dr. Cheri starts talking. So I just want to show everybody what we are doing within the 10K Project, and then we shall get started with Dr. Phillips. So let's see here. Within the 10K Project, every week we ask the question if there is a way for us to build Black wealth and help Black businesses. And we believe that there is. So I have been a business plan writer for the past decade, and I had a lot of companies come to me from all ethnicities. And a lot of people had great ideas, great visions, great plans. I would write business plans for people from other ethnicities, and they usually had an aunt, an uncle, a frat brother, somebody that they could go to and get the $50,000 to $200,000 plus check. In our community, we rarely had that. And I started talking with our founders a few years ago and started asking, just saying, actually, hey, if 10,000 of us got together, we put in $100 each, that's $1 million. We could start funding our own businesses and creating our own jobs. And I said it for 3 years. And finally, one day, Tawana, one of our co-founders, called me to the carpet and said, when are you going to do something about that? And I said, well, there's no way I could do that by myself. So the other co-founders decided, to join in with me, and we decided to be part of the solution. And understanding that businesses need money to start and grow. Our businesses typically start with 1/3 the capital of our counterparts. And because of that, our businesses are not reaching the levels of revenue and profitability that others are. Also, there was a Morgan Stanley report that said when our businesses are properly funded, they become as profitable as any other ethnically founded group. So we want to tackle this issue. So 2 major problems. Number one is that our businesses are least likely to be funded. And the second is, even when those businesses, the Black businesses, are funded, the community as a whole cannot participate in the business's growth. Well, what if we, the people, could earn returns and shares in the profits of the businesses that we fund? Well, thanks to the Jobs Act of 2012, Black entrepreneurs have another option to get the money that they need from everyday people, called the crowd. This is something called equity crowdfunding. I am asked, not often, but every once in a while, is this a susu? The answer is no. I'm also asked, is this a fund? The answer is no. This is something called equity crowdfunding. And how does equity crowdfunding work? Entrepreneurs can come to an approved equity crowdfunding portal in order to raise starting, I think in the middle of the month, it's going up to $5 million from $1,070,000 per year. Then entrepreneurs would present their companies on an equity crowdfunding portal. And each individual investor gets to decide if they want to invest in that specific company. If the company makes it big, the crowd shares in the profit. If not, investors lose only what they put into the company. So we have applied to be an equity crowdfunding portal. You cannot just slap up a website and say, we're in business. You actually have to get approved by the Securities and Exchange Commission and FINRA. The founders and I had to be fingerprinted. We have to go through an FBI background check. One of the co-founders and I are going to have to go most likely and do an interview with the federal government to start this. So it is a long process to get government approval. But we have said to the government that we want to specifically have this equity crowdfunding portal for Black-owned businesses, and we want the community to be a part of funding the businesses that are on the portal. And the minimum investment on our portal, if we are approved, because we cannot guarantee we'll be approved, but if we are approved, the minimum investment for any investor will be $100 per business that you decide you want to help fund. So again, the idea and the way we came up with the 10K project name is when 10,000 everyday people put $100 each into a business, that's $1 million. The community can start funding its own companies, profiting from its own innovation, creating jobs, and building Black wealth. We talked about this already. The SEC and FINRA application has been filed, and we've started the equity crowdfunding portal application. Again, we cannot be sure that we're going to be approved, but we are in the process right now. So the ecosystem that we're building is quite simple. Number one is we will have entrepreneurs from various industries who want funding. Number two are everyday people who would be investors in these businesses, and the minimum investment would be $100 per business because we wanted to keep it affordable. And number three, before, during, and after funding, these entrepreneurs are going to need assistance.
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Okay,
keep going.
these entrepreneurs are going to need assistance in order to grow.
Keep going.
So how, who's going to assist them? CPAs, attorneys, digital marketers, project managers. There is a concept which Dr. Cheri, of course, could explain as well, called leakage. Right now, we are at 98% leakage in the Black economy, meaning if you spend money with a Black entrepreneur, if they don't get their supplies from another Black entrepreneur, that is leakage. That means that money is leaving the economy. What we want to do is figure out how we can make it so that we can reduce the leakage. So we're inviting everyone on here. If you're not a member and you want to become a member in order to help us fulfill this dream, we'd love to have you. It's a one-time payment of $100. And you would get VIP notifications about our application. We also have members only wealth building webinars around buying real estate, land, tax liens, stock options, Bitcoin, businesses. We have listened to the survey results that you have given us, and we're going to have peer-to-peer conversations or community coaching where you're able to take the lessons that experts come in and teach us, and we're able to talk about it as a community so you can apply the lessons that we're learning as members. We also have a knowledge center that is open with exclusive content. And we have our business directory, which is already done. Dr. Keisha has spent the holiday season putting the final touches on it, and we hope for it to be released anytime soon. So it's the10kproject.com. If you want to become a member, the10kproject.com. Again, I just have to say we cannot be sure we're going to get approved, but we have hired legal counsel who has done this for other people. There is another equity crowdfunding portal for Black businesses. So this is not something that is so far-fetched, but that is what we're looking to do. And we would love to have each and every person as a member. So Maurice, thank you so much for saying that. For legal purposes, our lawyer told us we had to be super careful about what we say as officers on a public platform, but thank you so much. So with that, Dr. Cheri, I am going to turn it over to you.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. To everyone that's joined us and came in while Cheri was doing the 10K project, welcome, a happy new year. I'm hoping that at some point, somewhere along these different talks, that you will see the value in this service that is being provided and that you will join. And they did not ask me to say anything about it, but I just believe in what they're doing just that much. So let's talk about what 2021 is going to look like. We already know and have been through 2020, and thank goodness we don't look like what we've been through, because we've been through quite a bit. We talked about, in previous sessions, I've talked about the fact that we are in a recession, and we are in a recession. Economic activity, meaning how much are we producing in terms of business sector, households, and the government. How much are we producing, and also including international trade. How much are we producing? And if you have 3 consecutive quarters where the production is negative, then we technically say that we're in a recession. We are in a recession. We're in a recession. We were headed towards a recession before COVID, primarily because we had been coasting on the efforts of the previous administration. And so the current administration, the outgoing administration, really did not have an economic plan, economic policy. So as a result of that, nothing too much was done other than some tax cuts. If I'm not mistaken, last year there were over 200 different tax cuts, tax breaks that were given to certain sectors. that would, in the hopes that that would help spark the economy. And what I will tell you is this: when we're in a recession, first and foremost, the best way out of a recession is to spend your way out. And when we talk about the economy, we talk about three uh, three consecutive quarters of economic activity. So when we look at what is being produced in the business market, we look at how much productivity, and we look at that through GDP. So if you are watching the evening news and you see the GDP, and they talk about GDP or GDP per capita, which is GDP per person, if you look at three consecutive quarters of GDP, that statistic, and it is negative, then we say that we're in a recession. And so going from there, we also look at the economy overall. So the economy is made up of three actors: households, that's us, that's us. And then you have the government sector, and then you have the business sector. Now, the household provides capital, provides investment and labor to the business in order for business sector to produce goods and services which the household will buy. And then the household and the business sector will pay taxes to the government. And then the government receives those taxes as revenues to provide services for our mutual benefit. And we call those public goods. And so, and then the government will also create policies that will either help that kind of regulate the economy. And so you need all three pieces. You need the government, you need the business, you need the households. And when all three work in concert, what you want to happen in the business cycle is you have what we call the peak, and that's the high times. That's when unemployment is low, interest rates are low, everybody's got money and everybody's spending money. That's the peak. And then you have the trough, which is the downturns, which is the recessions. And so what you want to happen is that the peak times are extended and the trough times are shortened. And so the government on its own through fiscal policies will adjust and adapt in ways through policies in ways that will either lengthen a peak and shorten a trough. And they don't always get it right. They don't always get it right. And then most of the time, what they do, we don't see the effects of it for a few quarters later. And so we have to look at, which is why it's so important that we pay attention to who we're voting for and what their stance are and what their beliefs are and values are relative to helping business out, helping households out, and what that looks like. Right now for 2021. So we're coming out of 2020 with this recession. And the reason why we don't hear much about the recession is because COVID has taken over. And then we also have will he or won't he exit quietly stage left come January 20th. And so because you have all of these, and then also the other debate, to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. So you have all of these different things going on that we really haven't paid. And then you have this dynamic in that the stock markets are still high and they're still up. And so how can you have a recession if Wall Street is doing so well? And the quick and dirty response is you have about 5 to 7 businesses who are doing phenomenally well. They're doing so well that when you combine the others, if they are doing poorly, it offsets their growth, offsets the downturn that the rest of the market is doing. And so that's why you keep seeing the Dow Jones, the S&P, whatever market you're looking at, and it's showing constant gains because those 5 or 7 companies are doing well. And then in 2021, that was 2020. That's why some people did phenomenally well. And if you weren't on that gravy train, you didn't do as well. Going into 2021, those same companies will do well again, especially in the first half of the year. because we're not going to go back to the offices anytime soon. And then for those that are able to work from home, and those that aren't, we're going to have to figure out how to readjust and adapt. Also, as they roll out the vaccines, anticipate Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and there's one more that just did something, but expect some of those pharmaceutical companies to be added to that 5 or 7 list of companies that I mentioned earlier. So you're going to see tech and Amazon do really well, and now you're going to add, going into 2021, these primary pharmaceuticals that will join. And because they're doing so well, stock market is going to still look up, and you're not going to hear much about us being in a recession, because those who have bought in are doing well, and they're doing so well. Now, what does that look like for us? What does that look like for us? If you didn't get in where you could fit in, then it's not too late, but it's going to be a high price for you to join the party. The other thing that we also have to think through is what the incoming Congress is going to do. On the agenda, what's currently on the agenda that are hot topics, hot buttons, things that will need immediate attention from this incoming Congress will be to increase or not to increase stimulus, right? So if you were eligible, meaning you made $76,000 or less, you were eligible for about $600 or some amount equal to but not greater than $600. So if you were eligible for it, you've received it in the last couple of days electronically. But if you're receiving paper checks, it's the check is in the mail. So now we have to look through, now that Senate and Congress have been sworn in. Now they have to decide, are we going to push out another stimulus package? Now, in doing so, what you're going to start hearing from the Republican Party, first and foremost, what you're going to hear from the Republican Party is this. They're going to start being the deficit hawk. If you are old enough to remember, I want to say 70s, 80s, portions of the 90s, whenever the Congress was Republican majority and you had a Democrat in the White House, whenever it came to fiscal policy, and remember, fiscal policy is government spending. When it came to fiscal policy and you had a Republican Congress and a Democrat president, the drum that they beat is, we don't want to blow up the deficit. Hear that drum again in this next session. They're going, every time the Democrats want to do something, it's going to be, well, how much does it cost? Where is it coming from? Because we don't want to blow up the deficit. Failing to understand, we've blown the deficit several times over in the last 4 years. Several times in the last 4 years. Also know that, so the Republicans are going to start talking about deficits, and they're going to talk about, we need to be fiscally responsible. So there's going to be a lot of pushback on some of the portions of the agenda that this incoming administration will want to do. We know that he wants to talk about infrastructure, which is building highways, roadways, bridges, buildings, those infrastructures, those big ticket infrastructure projects. That's on his list, and that will probably be the first thing out the gate, because Republicans and Democrats want something, and so that's a low-hanging fruit. So in terms of policy, look for a bipartisan bill that will go before President-elect Biden for his signature for government spending in that area. So For us, 10K project, you might want to start looking at not just construction, but those companies that support or are part of the supply chain for those construction companies that are more likely, because the big companies are going to get the contracts. They're going to need subcontractors. Infrastructure is a big thing. Healthcare and vaccines. President-elect Biden has said that he has set 300, I can't remember the exact number of vaccines within his first 100 days. In order for that to happen, and he wants it done free of charge. And so for that to happen, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca are going to have to like mass produce. And they're not going to mass produce for free, even though two of them, I think it was Moderna and AstraZeneca, I'm not sure, but two of the three took existing technology to create their vaccine. So their costs are considerably lower than the third one who had to originate the technology. But they're not going to send, even with the low cost, they're still not going to give it away, which means the federal government is going to have to write the check. So if the federal government is writing the check, that's government spending. So they're writing the check for the vaccines. They're writing the check for infrastructure. We've got to talk through, President Biden's talked about, he is committed to the environmental cord that was broken. So he knows that he can't just come back in and say the Paris Treaty. He can't just come back in and say, we're back, we want to lead. He knows he can't do that. So he's going to come in graciously, come in humbly. And so you're going to need to, yes, renewable energy would be the next area, because he's already committed to the environment. So you've got three right there. What is coming to the forefront? In fact, I just started hearing chatter about this morning, actually. Iran has decided that it wants to enrich its nuclear technology to 20%, which was a violation of an accord we had with them during the Obama administration that President Trump has walked back. And as a result of walking that back, Iran is now saying they've no longer tried to hide it. They're saying, listen, this is what we're about to do. And I think that maybe perhaps that this is their flag that they're tossing to see if they can bring Biden to the table so they can renegotiate. I'm not sure, but I would think that is it. We need to start. You need to have that in the forefront of those are going to be some of the things that the incoming State Department is going to have to figure out how to navigate, and that's going to have economic implications as well. So we've got, and then we still have the trade war with China. So we've got Iran, we've got China, we've got infrastructure, we've got vaccine. And then even though we haven't heard much about this, and I think primarily because of the presidential pardons and who got pardoned, criminal justice, social justice. I think that social justice will be prominent, will be present, but it won't be as present as it has been, because I think that we're looking at Biden and saying, oh, and we look at all of the people that he has nominated and put in, that he wants to put as advisors, and we say, oh, okay, we're good. Agree, disagree. I don't see that social justice will be on the forefront immediately. Criminal justice, however, I think that what you're going to start seeing are what we call those nonviolent offenders. You're going to see more and more of them being released. But here's the catch. They're not going to be released to freedom. They're going to be released to house arrest. And when they're released to house arrest, somebody's got to monitor. And so whereas we're not paying for privatized prison systems, we're going to have to pay for privatized monitoring. That we will see, not in the immediate, not in that first 100 days, but in the second quarter, going into the third quarter, you'll start hearing some things about the criminal justice system and criminal justice reform. And so I think those are some things. Now, going to Cheri, your point about leakage and supply chain, I can tell you
before you go
okay.
to leakage, I want everyone to just take a step back. I hope you all were writing some notes. Dr. Cheri is telling you to follow the money.
Yes.
Everybody put in the chat, wherever you're watching, you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, you're on Zoom, follow the money. I want to see follow the money everywhere. Follow the money. And we're going to go through this list again. I was writing the list here, but I want you to think, follow the money. Perfect. I'm seeing it all over. Love it. Go on and talk about leakage, and then we're going to come back and we're going to have some follow-up questions. Love it. Thank you, everybody.
We have for years inside of the Black community, and I know that I have, and you don't have to be college educated to have this conversation. Our money is leaving our community. Our money leaves as soon as we get it. We're giving our money to every other ethnicity but our own. There have been people who have quoted studies that says, X number of seconds, or, it circulates. And so basically what we're talking about is money circulation. And so we look at the number of times a dollar circulates within an economy. We can talk about it in the macro economy, or we can talk about it within our own economy. Now, whether you agree or think it's 6 seconds, 6 minutes, 6 hours, 6 days, whatever quote you want to lean on when you say the money leaves our hands out of our community quickly, you're going to be right. It does not circulate well or long within our community. One of the biggest reasons is not because we don't have Black businesses. We do. The Small Business Administration says that from 2016 to 2018, the largest, most pronounced group of small business owners were Black women. A distant second was Black men and Hispanics. So it's not like we don't have businesses. We are creating businesses. And believe it or not, we really are buying from our own. We are really buying. But I want to throw some numbers at you for a minute. And I want you to just think through these numbers. So in 2018, there is a group of marketers, and they do economic analysis. And in 2018, the US buying power by race and ethnicity, US buying power, this is your purchasing power. What does your dollars buy? In 2018, white households, $12,147.70. Black households, $1,302.20. Asian households, $1,013.30. Multiracial households, $224.70. Native Americans, $114.60. And Hispanics outpaced Blacks at $1,539. So white spending power is $148. Black households, $1,300. 12,000 versus 1,300. That's if we're using white households as our standard. Now, what does that mean? We have less than, just at, what is that? Just over 10%. a tenth. We have our purchasing power is right at about a tenth, 1/10.
And actually our net worth is about a 10th as well. So that makes sense.
Okay. Now, why is this important? While we are building businesses and while we are buying our own, where as business owners, where are we getting our supplies? Because when we look at when we talk about economic activity and production, we have to start with raw material and go from raw material to finished product retail. And if Black companies are somewhere on the end part where we are getting an end good that we're reselling or doing next to nothing or very little to change, you have a whole complete supply chain from raw material until that product gets to you. So if I have a t-shirt shop where I do custom t-shirts, I am not growing the cotton or making the blends. I am not sewing the shirts. I am not shipping the shirts. I am receiving the shirts. I am receiving the ink. I am creating the design, right? So I do a little bit to it, but I'm getting the materials that I get, the input goods I get are so far away from the raw material that from the raw material till it gets to me, how many hands has it changed, right? And so what we need to do is not only think about starting up the business, but we also need to look at the supply chain and then plugging into those supply chains.
Can I make a statement, Dr. Cheri?
Right
Because we had JD in YouTube said, you know, one thing that's not talked about is that we don't have the resources to build what people need, meaning that we need capital. That's precisely what the 10K project wants to do. Now, are we going to be able to do it all? No. However, we can put a dent in this, and it's starting off by us having these conversations, number one. Number two is applying to be an equity crowdfunding portal. And if and when we are approved, having enough of us come together and the right businesses come to the platform, okay? So that we can strategically look at leakage and say and ask if this company is going to help with the leakage issue. So I love everybody who has barbecue sauce, okay? However, we need people who are in manufacturing, in agriculture, buying land, you know, doing distribution and logistics, etc. So I want to put a plug in here. Now you have to be a member to come to this specific session. But I've been saying to the officers for a while that we need to start introducing buying businesses and not just starting businesses. There's a gentleman, a Black gentleman in New Jersey who owns an auto parts supplier company or supply company, $1.6 billion a year. He did not start that company. He bought that company, and now it's Black owned. On January 26th, that's a Tuesday, January 26th is 7:30. I have an SBA lender coming to the platform to speak to members only. I talked to him about the equity crowdfunding that we want to do. He said, okay, Cheri, well, if you want to do it and you want the community to, you know, help put up some of the money for the purchasing of businesses, this is how it has to be done. This is the cap on the acquisition price. These are the types of things that you would need to have so that that business can be approved for SBA funding. He gave me the list. The only way you can get into that conversation in these types of conversations is for you to be a member, because we're going to go behind closed doors and talk strategy. We have 6 specific industries and areas that we're looking at, especially with regards to leakage. And a couple of them we mentioned here. We mentioned agriculture, manufacturing, and logistics. There are others that we're looking at as well. As a portal, we have to be very careful because there is a fine line with regards to how much of the conversation we can lead. But my hope and prayer is through the 10K project, during the time, especially that we're being considered for equity crowdfunding portal status, that I'm able to bring certain people to you, and I'm able to get some of you to start thinking. And then some of you would go into think tanks, I'm gonna call them think tanks or whatever, huddle meetings, Zoom meetings, whatever. And you say, you know what? We can start buying businesses in manufacturing and in logistics. Let's put a search team together. What do we need to have? What are we looking for? If we know we have this community over here that's being built that can take care of the funding piece of it, then what's stopping us? Let's start thinking strategically. It drives me crazy. We've had some pretty prominent people come to the platform, and I'm not calling out any names, but when I asked them, okay, what organization is currently doing that, solving that problem? Nobody. And the 10K project can't fix it all. I'm not even saying that, but I think we can fix this one piece of it, and we can really drive the ball down the field. So go ahead, Dr. Cheri. I know I rambled there a little bit, but I wanted to make sure I put all of that in there for people.
It works well. We're going to open up the floor, and I did see a question about what is the message that I'm trying to deliver. The reason why I bring all of these things to you all and let you know what to be on the lookout for in terms of what's going on around us is because from that, you are to deduce, well, these are some industries I might want to look at and look into. Again, follow the money. So Congress is not going to invest in anything that is not going to have some type of monetary significance, right? Because some of our elected officials are dependent and reliant on lobbyists for their existence where they're at. And the squeaky cog gets the oil. So when we're talking about monies, we're talking about the events. So when I speak to you about mass producing the vaccines and the fact that they need to solve this problem of getting the vaccines, we've got all these vaccines. We got to first get all these vaccines produced, and then we got to get them into the people's arms. There are businesses, starting with the pharmaceutical company, from the pharmaceutical company creating that vaccine all the way through till you get to the doctor's office or the drugstore. There's a whole supply chain there that is going to get that vaccine into your arm. There are businesses along that way. That's where you need to look. When I tell you that he's talking about infrastructure and he wants to do big infrastructure projects so that government can spend this money to spend us out of this recession, then we need to look at construction companies. We need to look at equipment companies. We need to look at architectural companies, and then look at surveyors and those types because those are going to be privatized. We need to look at those and start figuring out where we can get in, where we fit in terms of investing. When I tell you that we're talking about the criminal justice system might not be on the front burner right now, but about second or third quarter, it will come to the fore. Then we need to start looking at, well, if I was thinking about investing in privatized prison system, I might not want to do that. I might want to look at monitoring systems. What companies have monitoring systems? I cannot give you specific companies to invest in. One, because I am not a licensed stock financial planner. And so I can't tell you, pick this stock. But what I can tell you is here are some industries that you need to look for. When we talk about my Instagram is littered with young ladies who are makeup artists. I only know of maybe 2 companies that are Black owned. And even though those 2 companies are Black owned, they are distributors, they're not manufacturers. So we might want to start looking at what is that line? What does that supply chain line look like? And then I use the example of the t-shirts. Where are our t-shirt companies, businesses, where are they getting their t-shirts from? And then where is that company getting the material from? If we're talking about food, we've got dozens, a myriad of restaurants. We don't have any processing plants, any packing plants. We don't own the trucking and logistics that gets the animal to the processing plant, the animal from the farm to the processing plant, and from the processing plant to the distribution center, from the distribution center to the retail store, and from the retail store to the home. So as I give you, these are the things that economists are looking at, then the question should be, what are the businesses associated with it? And what does the supply chain look like? And how can we insert ourselves into that supply chain line? Because it's not until we insert ourselves in that supply chain line are we able to go from start to finish Black owned. And that's where the money is. I liken it to when I'm in my classes, I say it's similar to, I use it as an analogy. You have the rap star, or the singer, the R&B singer, or the rap artist. They get up and they perform, and you see them. You don't see the A&R person. You don't see the marketing person. You don't see the executive whose vision determines whether or not that artist gets to be true to him or herself, or whether they have to do the song or the rap that is given to them. They aren't the ones, they may or may not be the ones that write and produce their material. They may or may not be the ones that determine where they go when they go to concerts. Right now in Black businesses are the artist and the rap artist. Some of us might actually write our own lyrics. We need to be the A&R person. We need to be the executive who creates the vision for that artist. We need to be the songwriter. We need to be the producer. We need to be the electrical that handles that. We need to be the one that determines the concert venues and how much the tickets are going to be, or how much the merchandise is going to be. We need to have total ownership of that whole process. That's what this organization, the 10K Project, is trying to do, or to get started. And now we can open up the floor.
Absolutely. So people are saying amen on all the social platforms, and we have a lot of different types of questions as well. I do want to just have people think about, in 2021 and beyond, it's about your economy and the Black economy, the US economy, and then the global economy.
In that order.
In that order, yes, which is why we started with the family bank, and for those of you who have not had a chance to go through the replays of the family bank, I really do suggest it that you do. We will have a couple of sessions where we have just Q&A and open discussion. We're calling it community coaching around the family bank, but setting up your family banks, because that's how our counterparts are doing it. They have entities that do the investing for them so that they can get the extra tax breaks and things like that. We need to start functioning and thinking like a business, right? So it's your economy. Then I have here your business and your career prospects, because I don't think everyone should be an entrepreneur. I don't think that. I think some people, a lot of people do better in a structure. However, you can take what happened in 2020, take the lessons that Dr. Cheri has given you today, and add it to your corporate job. Some of us are in positions that are going to phase out due to artificial intelligence and blockchain and other technologies happening over the next decade, if not sooner, because COVID took everything and accelerated it. What you don't want to be is the person who's stuck on the unemployment line when we are telling you in 2021, January 4th, 2021, that this is coming. And if you're ever going to pivot, now's the time to do it while you have some breathing room. Take that certification. Dr. Cheri told you where the money is going. You know, help your husband or your wife start that business. Take some of your corporate money and help them start that business where the money is going, et cetera, et cetera. So I had those three things: your economy, your business, your career prospects. It's a really big, really big thing I wanted to push right now. So let's see, we have a lot of questions here. So why don't we go through some of the questions? And I'm going to start with what's in the Q&A because that's the official question section. So if you have a real burning question, everybody, put it in the Zoom Q&A. Kevin is asking, do you need to be an accredited investor? I'm thinking you mean for the 10K project. The answer is no. That's the whole point, is the government allows unaccredited investors to invest in businesses. So Richard is asking, what shoe is going to drop and when GDP is at 1932 levels?
The shoe has already been dropping. That's why we're in a recession. It is not whether or not it's going to drop, it's how long it's going to stay down. And what policies, what will have to happen. Currently, the federal government, Congress, the last session of Congress that left right around Christmas time, they left right after they voted to give us the 600, but that legislative body went to the Federal Reserve Bank. And if you listen to the previous 10K session, I talk about fiscal and monetary policy, and you have the federal government and you have the central bank, which is the Federal Reserve Bank. The last legislative government, Congress, went to the Federal Reserve and said, fix it. We're having some issues, fix it, do something. And the Federal Reserve Bank replied back, not our place, because they have their function is keep inflation down, and it is, keep interest rates competitive. It's at zero. Interest rates is at zero. Inflation is at an all-time recent historic low. So as far as the Federal Reserve Bank is concerned, they don't have to do anything because their job is already done. And so they've kind of pushed back and said, Congress, listen, you all need to do some things. You want us out of this recession. This is not a monetary issue. This is not a dollar circulation issue. This is a policy issue. You all need to do your job. And so expect, I suspect that there'll be less tension, especially if Janet Yellen becomes the Secretary Treasurer, because she's got those connections. But don't anticipate, it'll be a minute, depending upon what this Congress does, it'll be a minute before you see interest rates go up, or you might see inflation creep up. You'll see inflation go up before you see interest rates go up.
Okay. Do I have like crazy background noise now? Is it really? Okay, good. Chris is asking, do you think this new administration will have the funds available for citizens to eliminate credit card debt, for example? And I know that there was something, about student loan debt potentially. Yeah. I think so I believe they have the money. The question is, are they going to use it for that purpose?
Let me just go ahead and bust your bubble. It's going to be a hard fight for the student loan. Mm-hmm. Forget about the credit card. Forget about the credit card. The most that you can hope for is that President Biden will roll back because when President Trump came into office, he rolled back a lot of the credit protections that were given to consumers. There was a series of, and I can't, it just escapes my mind now, but there was a series of policies that were protecting consumers. It included an agency, and again, I just went blank with what it was. That was set during the Obama administration. During the Trump administration, he did away with those. He underfunded, and then he said, we're going to do away with these. Expect Biden to come back and pull those, put those back in place. So in terms of how your creditors can reach out to you and contact you, that will change. You know, what you can and cannot, you know, if you go the bankruptcy route, what you can and cannot declare, those kinds of things will come into place. But will Congress take some of their resources and say, not only are we going to wipe student loan debts clear up to a certain dollar amount, but we're also going to do credit card debt? They're not going to include credit card debt. Because again, you're going to have the Republicans shouting personal responsibility and deficit spending.
Yeah, this is where you got to make more money. So Kevin is saying here and asking, COVID-19 has created a lot of motivated sellers of businesses because some believe businesses are 30 to 50% less in value. How can we go about buying businesses with little or no bank finance by way of seller financing? I do have a couple of resources for you. One is we had Russell Logan come for members. He came and did a session, How to Buy a Business. It was about a month and a half ago. He has a company called Sugar, SUGAER, SUGAER.com. You're able to go. He has a course. Now, I don't think he teaches creative financing, but the interesting thing about buying a business versus buying another type, like a house, for example, is that there's no two deals that are exactly the same. So there's a lot more flexibility with the sellers. So the final thing is there are very, 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 very few business owners who will give you their business for no money down. That is a myth from every creative, financial, business buying person that I've ever heard.
Yes.
They just say it doesn't have to be your money, but the buyer is going to want some money down, and that's where you have to be creative. There are some good YouTube channels out there as well about buying businesses and doing them with creative financing. So there's a gentleman out of Canada, I think his name is Michael Barnett. When Dr. Cheri answers a question, I'll go and look because I'm subscribed to his channel. I think his name is Michael Barnett, and I like him as well. I don't think he does as much creative financing, but he does teach some of it, and he has a course as well. Dr. Cheri, do you have any thoughts about this specific question?
No, I don't. I just know that when it comes to financing existing businesses, why spend mine when I can spend yours has been the mantra that I use.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody's money is going to be used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be all up front. I mean, depending on, again, the business owner, you might get away with giving them 20% or 25%, and then they carry the note on the back end. But that's going to depend on a lot of different factors if they're willing to do that kind of deal for you. And the other thing I will say is you also have to consider the amount of money that you have to put in order to get the business up to code. And when I say code, that doesn't necessarily mean like OSHA or anything like that. It could be, I wrote a business plan last month for a guy who's buying another person's restaurant, and they're putting extra money in because they don't do any kind of delivery. No Grubhub. They don't have they have a website, but it's not optimized and all of that. So of course that's a little bit of money, but still any business that you buy, it's not just the amount of money you're putting down. It's what is it going to take to get that company to, 21st century, 2021, really ready to do business. So you got to think about those things as well. We'll have a special session around that, Kevin, as well, where we'll, talk about, some other resources, but I will look for, I think his name is Michael Barnett, but I'll look for him and I'll make sure to put that in the chat here in Zoom for you. Dr. Cheri, we have another question here. Oh, sorry. Once a member, I think this may be for me. Can you do a session on how to get started with investing for people who don't have a lot of money but wish to get started? We've done some already. We have had 4 sessions with Ali King, who is in the chat right now. So Ali, Monique, I think that you two should talk. She's done 4 sessions with us. She has another session coming up on Friday. So Ali King and Vince Lane, I would listen to their sessions, but also, consider speaking with them because they have programs where perhaps, you could get started without a lot of money. So great question though, Monique. Alyssa, has there been any discussions on inventors, inventions, and how to navigate that area from concept to patenting? No, not on our end. However, I know a patent attorney, and if that's something that, the community members want to hear about, I'll be more than happy to invite that person, and then we can also have some community sessions around that as well. Great question. Oh, Brian, is there any hope for reparations around Biden? No. Go ahead, Dr. Cheri.
Listen, the only thing he committed to was to create a task force that would consider the discussion of it. And even if we got past I will consider the consideration of it, you still have to figure out who's going to sit on the committee, what is the agenda, then you got to determine, and even if you can get past that, then you have to get to a point where you're talking about after you've gone through all of that and you're getting to the point where you're talking about money and compensation, then you got to determine who gets it. You have to determine whether or not you're going to put stipulations on it. Are you going to disperse it like you did with the Native Americans? Are you going to disperse it like you did with the Japanese Americans? Are you going to disperse it like you did with the former slave owners, when slavery was abolished? How is that money going to be dispersed and to whom? Because believe it or not, there are a lot of people who are not descendants of the enslaved who are claiming to be Black, thinking ahead that in the event that this comes to pass, I've said it long enough, everybody's going to believe it to be true. So, and that's going to take more than these 4 years that he's in,
Not only that, Latinos are starting to say that they were slaves and they deserve reparations too.
Exactly. Everybody, every ethnicity is coming out of the woodworks now and joining in on the bandwagon. And we've historically have had this come one, come all. We lead the charge because we've been disenfranchised in an area, and so we lead the charge, and then others kind of jump on board, and then we say, well, come on, because we think that if they come on, that validates what we're saying. But what it actually does is it allows those that have the power to say, well, I'll just do it like this. And that way it'll cover everybody. And when it covers everybody, we don't get covered. A good example is affirmative action.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think many of us have learned our lessons from previous.
Look at
previous movements. Yeah, previous movements. Exactly. So Vivian is asking, is there a governmental pamphlet with the list of agencies or departments, what they do, contact information, the publications that they put out, how to become a vendor with the various agencies? I don't know if there's a pamphlet, but I do know there are lists online. So I've Googled that before in order to see. I think there are 120 something agencies out there. So there are a lot. And yes, they do all have their own missions and their own budgets and everything. The big thing that I have learned from every federal contractor I've ever known is pick 1 to 2 agencies and go deep. Know every single buyer at that agency, what they're looking for. And y'all know my saying, it's not what you know and it's not who you know, it's who knows you.
Yes, yes.
That is how business is done. And it's not just federal, it's state, it's county, it's city, you know, as well.
I will add to that, the Department of Defense has, because the federal government is the largest buyer in the US, the department, they've put within the Department of Defense an agency. It's called Procurement Technical Assistance Center.
Yeah, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago when we had Daryl Hamlin come on.
Yeah.
I think you were here for that, right? You were listening to that?
I was. That's
I'm going to tell everybody, if you did not hear that session, go back on our YouTube channel 2 weeks ago and listen to that. The money, they call it appropriations, the money that we're missing out on because we don't have the right structures to receive these funds. It's crazy.
Yes, exactly.
Crazy. But go ahead, Dr. Cheri. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That was the only thing I was going to add. I did see something in the chat about a couple of questions. What am I concerned about the additional amount of money being created via the Fed? And out of curiosity, what do I think about the crypto? Those 2 questions were answered with the last my last visit. But nuts and bolts of it, right now, no, I'm not too concerned about additional monies being created by the Feds, primarily because the Feds have said we're not going to do anything right at this moment. They're leaving it up to the federal government through fiscal policy. So I'm not concerned about that. In terms of cryptocurrency, as you may or may not be aware, the U.S. government, meaning the Federal Reserve Bank, our central bank, has all but kind of like just said, no, we're not going to even touch it. We're not going to deal with it. We're not going to legitimize it by even speaking on it, primarily because it is something that can't be regulated. Because if it was something that could be regulated, they would be the ones that regulate it. And then yes, they would be all for it. But because they can't regulate it, they have acted as though if we ignore it, it will go away. The problem is, and this is, like I said, I mentioned this in a previous session, the problem is you've got other central banks around the world who are getting onto it. And so now, and I think, and this is what I was talking about with Janet Yellen being the US Treasury Secretary, I think that now the US central bank will be more open to the idea of cryptocurrency because she's there. Whereas prior to, they wouldn't be. So I think
the SEC is actually getting open to it, or opening themselves to it, is now Hester Price runs the SEC, and she has she's softened to it, you know, immensely. So I wouldn't be surprised. Now I will say crypto is very volatile. You know, don't invest what you can't lose, et cetera, et cetera. Be smart investors when it comes to this. But, you know, Ryan is asking, can you do a presentation like this for some of the Black churches here in my area? I'd be happy to facilitate. So Ryan, are you talking to Dr. Cheri or are you talking to me? Let us know that. And I did find the gentleman, his name is David Barnett. That is the business broker that I follow. he used to be a business broker. Now he teaches people how to buy and sell businesses. One of the interesting things he talks about is the fact that 80%, 80% of businesses that are sold are not done so through an intermediary, meaning a business broker. They're done person to person, because you know this person, they know you, and you two decide to come together and do a deal. He also talks about the fact that a lot of business owners come up with crazy valuations, what they think their business is worth. And you are going to have to kiss a lot of what do you call it, toads, to get your prince or princess of a business. So Ryan is saying both of us. I would be happy to, as long as it's a Zoom session. And Dr. Cheri, she's nodding as well. So yeah, I mean, we'd be happy. I'll talk to anybody as long as it's a Zoom session. So
exactly.
So we're going to have time for one more question. So we've got Daniel here. Considering the revenue being generated by the cannabis industry in places like Colorado, California, and Oregon, and the movement to legalize recreational marijuana, what are your thoughts on investment in that industry? I would say do your research. And I would say there's a bunch of different avenues as well. There are stock investments, there are, we call it funds, you know, as well as people who are doing private investment, but definitely do your research on it.
I would agree with that. Do the homework, do the due diligence.
Yeah. And there are some people who are not investing because it's still a federal issue. I was listening to Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank, and he has said that, you know, his lawyers have said it's a federal issue, you know. So if you're a private investor, just recognize that there are risks inherent with this.
And I will say this: the federal government will be slow to act on making that less than in decriminalizing it until they figure out a way that they can capitalize or monetize it in the form of taxation.
Yeah. So with that, I want to thank everyone for being here today. The chat has been going crazy tonight.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to go back and read some of the things that people have been saying. Dr. Cheri, it is always a pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure is always mine. The pleasure is always mine.
We always have Dr. Cheri the first Monday of the quarter. So hopefully she will be back the first Monday in April for our economic update. And if you are not a member of the 10K Project, hopefully some of the things we said tonight has you thinking, you know what, I want to be a part of this group. So it's the10kproject.com to become a member. Thank you so much, everybody. And, you know, God bless you. Happy New Year. And we'll see you either tomorrow or next week. Take care.